The first time the gangster noticed the puppy, it was already too late to pretend he hadn't. Rain hammered the empty street like bullets, neon lights bleeding into the puddles, when something warm brushed against his ankle. He looked down, annoyed, until he saw two shaking paws wrapped around his shoe and a pair of desperate eyes staring up at him as if he were the last hope left in the world. Everyone in the city knew Armin, Black Hand, Malik. He was the man people crossed the street to avoid, the man whose name could end conversations and lives. He had built his empire on fear, betrayal, and blood, and he told himself he felt nothing anymore. Yet this tiny, mud-soaked puppy clung to him without hesitation, whining softly, as if it trusted him more than anyone else alive. Armin tried to shake it off, muttering curses, but the puppy only held tighter, its thin body trembling against the cold. "Get lost," he growled, his voice echoing down the alley. The puppy didn't move. Instead, it limped forward and collapsed at his feet, letting out a weak cry that cut deeper than any knife ever had. Armin sighed in irritation, glancing around. His men waited near the car, smoking, watching him with raised brows. The gangster king stopping for a stray dog. That was a joke waiting to happen. He bent down roughly, ready to shove the animal aside, when he noticed the blood. A deep gash ran along the puppy's hind leg, fresh and ugly, the fur matted and red. For a moment, the alley disappeared. Armin saw another street, decades ago. He was 10 years old again, bleeding, hungry, begging passers-by for help after his father's death. He remembered how people had looked away, how no one stopped. He cursed under his breath and scooped the puppy into his arms. "Your trouble," he muttered, but his grip was careful, almost gentle. His men stared in disbelief as he placed the puppy in the back seat and barked an order to drive. "Vet, now." At the clinic, Armin waited outside, pacing like a caged animal. The vet said the puppy had been hit by a car and left to die. If Armin hadn't brought it in, it would have bled out in hours. The words settled heavily in his chest. He nodded once, paid without looking, and left before anyone could ask questions. He didn't plan to keep the puppy. That's what he told himself. But when he returned to his penthouse and placed the small, sleeping bundle on a towel, something shifted. The puppy woke, blinked, and wagged its tail weakly, as if the entire world was suddenly perfect because Armin was there. Against all logic, Armin smiled. He named the puppy Hope, though he would never admit why. Hope followed him everywhere, limping at first, then growing stronger by the day. She slept beside his bed, waited by the door, and greeted him like a hero every time he returned home, no matter how late or bloodstained he was. She didn't care who he was or what he had done. To her, he was just the man who had saved her. But Armin's world didn't pause for redemption. A rival gang began pushing into his territory, more violent and reckless than any before. The streets grew dangerous, and Armin knew a war was coming. One night, as gunfire erupted outside his building, chaos exploded. Shattered glass, screaming tires, shouted orders. In the confusion, Hope slipped out through an open door. When Armin realized she was gone, panic ripped through him in a way he had never felt, not even when bullets flew past his head. He ran into the night, ignoring his men's calls, his heart pounding as he screamed her name. The city that once bowed to him now felt endless and cruel. He found her in the same alley where they had first met. Hope was trapped, cornered by a fire started during the shootout, flames licking closer with every second. Without thinking, Armin ran through the smoke, coughing, his expensive suit burning, his lungs screaming. He shielded the puppy with his own body, collapsing as he pulled her free. By the time his men reached him, Armin was unconscious, burned, and barely breathing. Hope lay on his chest, barking and whining, refusing to move. At the hospital, doctors fought for his life. His men waited in silence, hardened criminals praying for a man they feared but respected. Hope was not allowed inside, so she sat by the door, unmoving, eyes fixed on the hallway. Days passed. When Armin finally woke, weak and bandaged, the first thing he heard was a familiar whimper. Hope leapt onto his bed, licking his face, tail wagging furiously. Tears streamed down Armin's face as he held her close, unashamed for the first time in his life. That near-death moment changed him. Armin dismantled his empire piece by piece. He turned over evidence, protected witnesses, and walked away from the life that had once defined him. Many didn't believe his transformation was real, but he didn't care. He opened a shelter in the very neighborhood where he had grown up, rescuing strays and giving abandoned kids a place to feel safe, something he had never had. Years later, people spoke of Armin Malik not as a gangster, but as the man who saved lives. When asked what changed him, he would simply look down at the old dog sitting faithfully by his side and smile. A broken puppy had begged a broken man for help, and in saving her, he had finally saved himself. The city never forgot the story, because it carried a powerful truth. Sometimes, redemption doesn't come through fear or force, but through a small, trembling heartbeat that believes you can be better, even when you don't believe it yourself.